Welcome to the NBA Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by thelines.com. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined as always by Nate Weitzer on the East Coast. And we are looking at our best bets video here for Monday as the playoffs roll on. We've got 2 games on the slate after we were treated to 4 games a day over the weekend. Nate and I also have a player props video up for you, so make sure to like and subscribe to that page and continue to follow along with us. We also want you to head to thelines.com. You can check out all the great written content as we're throwing all the picks up on the site, and you can use that odds finder tool we have on there. Nate has a great article with the odds finder tool in it, so you can make sure you're getting the best odds available to you from all of these books, giving us bets in the playoffs this NBA postseason. We had a bit of a struggle on Friday night with our player props. Pretty decent on the best bets, but needed some help. So we will be looking to course correct here for you guys as we move forward on Monday. Feeling pretty good about these picks in the 2 games we've got. So Nate, let's jump right into your first NBA best bet for tonight.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about the total is 217 for the Bucks Heat. And like over there, I'd rather just target the home team, which, the Heat you can get at 105 points, over 104.5 at DraftKings right now. That's just extremely low. I know these teams have a reputation for playing low-scoring games. I mean, the Bucks were an under team last year in the playoffs, but it's just really not been the case so far in these playoffs, mainly because of the pace of play, right? This series has been played at 100 pace, even a 96.7 pace when we moved to Miami, which is a lot faster than Miami played at home all year. And the regression just hasn't come for Miami shooting the 3 ball. Even after losing Tyler Hero for the series, they're still shooting 50% and hitting over 15 threes. And spreading out the Bucks, really, 27.5 assists per game, resulted in 27 plus in each quarter there in game 3 as they roll past this total for 121. They're averaging 124 in the series. And you look at their home road splits, 118 points per game at home after the All-Star break with a 124 rating. So they could go even higher if this is a 100 pace again. That's versus 106 on the road. So I would worry about Miami's offense if this game was in Milwaukee. I'm not really that worried about Giannis coming back and impacting the game as much defensively. I think what he will impact is a slower, more possessions, because more free throws, being more, even faster pace, more attacking in transition, more opportunities for Miami to come back and score as they've continued to play them competitively. And look, the assist numbers, the 3-point numbers, it's not an anomaly. You look at Milwaukee, 10th worst 3-point defense since the All-Star break, 6th worst in terms of assists allowed, and then 7th worst in terms of points allowed. They're giving up 120 on the road since the All-Star break. And in part, again, because of that pace, it's not like their defensive rating is terrible, but they like to play fast. The way they were able to beat Miami without Giannis, and we don't know how healthy Giannis is going to be if he manages to play. He's very much questionable. They beat Miami by spreading them out and shooting a ton of threes. And, you just see the MIA-MIL matchup and you're like, oh, that's going to be a physical, low-scoring game, but it just has not been the case. It's been a lot of 3-point shooting and nice spread-out sprawl ball as we see in the modern NBA.
Yep, I'm with all of that, and we've seen a pace of play that's been helped by turnovers. It's been helped by fast break points and above the break threes that a lot of those threes are coming on, where Miami is looking for guys like Strus and even Vincent, even Caleb Martin on the wings as they're coming down on fast breaks and getting a lot of those. But they're also getting a lot of points in the paint off of fast breaks and off of turnovers in general, really in turning and going and getting a couple guys ahead of the Milwaukee defense, which. I'm a little bit scared because I guess I'll just move on to my second pick, and it's not necessarily a scared pick. It's just a slightly confused pick because I think 216.5 is too low for this total. I'll just move right on to that. As you're talking about the Heat, I'm with that. But the Heat are so up and down that what we saw in game 2 could potentially happen again. And I would just like to take the points in the event that Drew Holiday and Chris Middleton come out firing again. And everybody really does on the Bucks. And allow for them to potentially have another blowout themselves, even though it is on the road for them. And I know Miami's been better at home at times, but they've definitely been inconsistent in a way that they're consistently inconsistent, and their averages at home and throughout the year in certain scenarios, they kind of average out. They're a little bit, up and down. They fluctuate. Sometimes they'll go over on the road. Sometimes they'll go over at home. And it'll be by a lot, up and down on their, well above or below their averages. But then it all comes back to the mean for them. And that's about 110 points in this situation as well. And I was also wondering, after they win, is there consistency to them, not playing well after they win? Not even, really, honestly. They score 110 points per game with an 113 offensive rating in games after a win. And that includes, a couple games that they went way under and way over. Like I said, they just fluctuate. But either way, I think if they aren't, even if they're not scoring, I can't see Milwaukee coming out and playing like that once more. They shot abysmally from the floor. I don't know that you want to give that much credit to the Miami defense. As you said, there's just a lot of variance when you're shooting that many threes, and that was an off night for Milwaukee in a game that Miami came out hard, which is always what happens in game 3 with the home team there coming back to their building, with whether they're down 0-2 or tied 1-1 or whatever. That game 3 is always going to be a solid performance. It's usually going to be a solid performance from the home team coming back to their building. So the pace is a huge thing. It's actually been like 100.98, so it's basically 101 pace that these two teams are playing at in this series so far, and that's part of the reason that we're getting all these 245 point totals that just make this 216 and a half feel wrong. I do think if Giannis is in there and he's able to play, 26 and a half points feels pretty good for him too, and I think that he'll be capable of that if he's playing in this game. Even when we saw him come back from that knee in the finals, where you're like, oh, no human being could possibly even come back and play. Well, he came back and then had a 50-point, 17 rebound performance to win MVP of that series. So I think he's super capable of doing anything that he wants to do if his knee will allow it, and I think it will at this point. And so I'm going to go ahead and just take the over on the game at 216 and a half and feel really good about it.
Yeah, you'd feel really good if you take that and then Giannis is ruled in. Because he's just a walking 30, and also will elevate Jimmy Butler's game, who we've already seen score over a point per minute in this series. And I don't think Giannis is going to be healthy enough to play lockdown D on Jimmy and score the way he has. Drew Holiday is almost wasted in this series defensively, because who's he going to lock up? Gabe Vincent, Kyle Lowry? Miami doesn't care. They're not going to play through those guys. And yeah, so far Spo has had the X's and O's in place to stay a step ahead of Bud. We know how that coaching matchup goes, in our opinion. Never really a big Bud stan. But moving on here to a second pick and the second game of the night, Lakers Grizz, and I'm going with AD here. I think we were all tailing LeBron after his, Dylan Brooks talks trash, and LeBron indicates that he's going to go out there and win the game. And he had a fine line, but continued to kind of defer to AD down the stretch, who winds up with 31 and 17 on a 34% usage rate. And now we're getting 24 points for AD, 23 and a half at minus 110. I feel pretty damn good about that at home here. I'll go ahead and put 1.5 units on it, and 25 plus in a win for the Lakers is plus 185. Another half unit on that, please. And thank you. AD, home road in the playoffs in his career, 29 points per game with a 30% usage. That's compared to 25 on the road. He shoots 55% at home, gets to the line over 8 times a game. That's the biggest key here is Memphis, without Steven Adams and without Brandon Clark, has struggled against this type of player. I mean, they're giving up the 10th most second chance points on the road and the 4th highest free throw rate, which is the key against AD on the road since the All-Star break. A 118 defensive rating without Steven Adams on the road, and even 11th in paint points, which is bad for Memphis because they're usually top 5 in that department. So I mean, AD at home with the Lakers, I mean, this is weird because a lot of these games were in the bubble and didn't necessarily matter if they were home or away, but when they were listed at home on the schedule, he only came up short of 25 points once in the first round. With the Lakers, he's scoring 27. Again, that 30% usage rate versus 23 in road games. I mean, there are a couple of real road games in there, including the first 2 of this series, though, which is what we can look at very indicatively and say, wow, he really came back to crypto and had felt a lot more comfortable. I think there is something to say for a lack of travel, helping a guy with all those joint and injury history issues. So playing at home here for the second game in a row against a Grizzlies team missing a lot of interior depth, I expect him to carry the Lakers and really on both ends of the floor. But I think the points are the most exploitable prop here for AD.
Yeah, I continue to like blocks, but it's interesting too because we were all thinking about LeBron, and man, I really would have loved if he just got one more rebound because that would have been great for some double bets and some 10 rebound bets that were plus money. Anyway, AD was the one who also had a quote before game 3 there where he was like, if Dylan Brooks is talking like that about LeBron James, then what does he think about the rest of us? Because he's at least a top 3 player of all time. So if he thinks he's old and washed up or, not that good and overrated, then what does he think about me, Anthony Davis, or, any of the other players that aren't nearly as good as the two of us? And AD took that personally, to use the Jordan meme there from The Last Dance. At any rate, I would guess that in this one, AD comes out firing once again. I don't think you're going to see a game that he gets under like 12 or 13 rebounds anymore in this series like he did in game 2 where he only had 9. So the rebound bets could be alive as well, but the points feel low, like you said, in a game where I kind of like an over. So segue to that pick for me where I am going over 220.5 in this game. And I think it's gone down because of a number of reasons. I mean, it's down from about 227 where the other games were sort of set at with their totals in the first 3 games of this series. I think you're getting value on that because the last 2 have gone under a bit more because of the fact that Ja wasn't playing before. Last game he came back, I understand, but I think that was a bit of a difference. There was just when you scored 9 points in the first quarter, it's kind of dead in the water at that point. And from that point on, though, you look at how many points, right? It was like almost 30 a quarter for them, which gets you to over this 220.5 if the Lakers are coming along for the ride, which I believe they will be, because I think there's no shortage of sort of fire in the eyes of the Lakers right now. I think they're still going to be bringing it on offense and still going to be looking to kick Dylan Brooks in the face, metaphorically speaking, as much as they can moving forward with him playing once again. I also like Ja to come back and do more of what he's doing. So I am going to take the over 220.5, but I'm also, going to add a little bet there where I parlay it with Ja to have 25.5 points in this one, get it at plus 170 on DraftKings, a little bit better than a couple of the books that I was looking at this type of bet with, because I do think Ja's going to continue to do what he needs to do to get this team on offense. And a couple of other guys have been, like Jaren Jackson Jr. obviously struggled in that game 3, and he might continue to have that be the case if AD is going to decide that he's getting 19 rebounds and just owning that area of the floor. He might continue to have a few problems, but I think you can expect a bit of a bounce back from guys like Desmond Bane, and also Big Body Roddy, who missed too many of his threes that he had some good looks in that one, and they're going to continue to leave him open. He was hitting in the first 2, and he just had a bad game there. So the pace also is going to go back up to what it is when you play with Ja, which in game 2 it went down to below 100. In games 1 and 3 with Ja playing, you had it close to 101 in game 3, and then 101.5 in game 1. And I think you expect more of that once again. Like I said, it slowed all the way down to 95 in game 2 without Ja. So a couple of things that are also kind of relevant here in terms of, 1 day of rest. I think it is relevant now when you look at how they've done in the season in these types of situations. And AD and LeBron, usually played it with at least 1 day of rest. So it's pretty relevant. I think that, these teams basically average around 232 when in terms of they're each scoring more than 116 points per game with 1 day of rest. And I think that is going to be helpful, like you said, for AD and company, who would really benefit from still staying in Los Angeles and not having to get on a plane and travel. So Lakers can't guard point guards, especially athletic point guards like Ja Morant. That's been their problem all season, giving up the second most points per game. Ja's averaging 31 a game in his last 4 at the Lake Show as well on the road there with 9.5 assists too. So if you do like the points like I do, you probably get something on the assists for him as well. But just Ja to get the 25.5 with the win is nice plus 170, and I like those odds.
Yeah, it's similar logic as I had last night with the Wolves, forcing that game over with Ant going off. They wind up going under by 1 point, and we were going to overtime. But I agree with this here. I mean, the way I'm on board with Ja carrying the offense, because there's a lot of really bad complementary pieces offensively right now. I mean, just to say that, like Tillman, Roddy, Dylan Brooks, they're out there for their defense. Ja's going to continue to have a huge usage rate around 35%. it's amazing that he's able to do this with what seemed like a badly sprained wrist, but he's going to continue to go out there and gun. And that's why the way I'm targeting that is this head-to-head player prop that we'll get into in a minute, versus with just him to outscore LeBron. I don't understand how that's even money, even spread right now at DraftKings. I think Ja will absolutely outscore LeBron whether this game goes over or not.
Well, bonus pick with a preview for the player props video there from Nate. I like it because I agree, and I think you're right to feel as confident as you do in that one, which we'll talk about here, but in this player props video. So make sure to like and subscribe to that page. That's all the time we have for you in our best bets video today, but we are coming back continuously with these player props and best bets throughout the rest of this postseason. Until we see you next, happy betting.